As we stand at the edge of a brand new day, take a breath not just to fill your lungs, but to awaken your spirit in a world that moves fast enough to blur blessings into the background. This moment is a divine invitation to pause, to notice, and to remember that the simple act of opening our eyes this morning is itself a miracle. Some of us walked into this room carrying silent battles, the kind no one sees, the kind only God knows. Yet, even in those hidden places, grace followed you here. Today is more than another square on the calendar. It is evidence that purpose still pulses in your life. You were chosen to step into this sunrise. You were trusted with breath, strength, and another chance to rise above yesterday's limitations. And for that, we are compelled to lift our hearts in gratitude, because when we thank God for what we have, we unlock the door to what He is preparing next. Gratitude is not passive. It is a powerful spiritual posture. It shifts atmospheres, transforms attitudes, and rewrites the story of our day before it even begins. When we choose to thank God for new mercies, for protection we didn't see, for opportunities still unfolding, we align ourselves with heaven's rhythm. We stop living by fear and start living by faith. So as we step together into this sacred moment, let us awaken our awareness of every blessing known and unknown. Let us recognize that we are standing in a divine gift, one wrapped in potential, hope, and possibility. And with hearts wide open, let us begin this journey with a prayer of gratitude, a prayer that acknowledges God's goodness, honors His presence, and welcomes the favor waiting for us in this new day. The power of gratitude to shift your spiritual atmosphere is far greater than most people realize, because gratitude is not simply an emotion, a polite response, or a fleeting moment of appreciation. It is a spiritual force, a deliberate stance of the heart that can rewrite the tone of your entire day and reposition your life under the influence of God's goodness. When you choose gratitude, you are choosing to see through the lens of faith instead of the lens of fear. You are choosing to recognize God's hand where others only notice routine. You are choosing to activate spiritual laws that release peace, clarity, and divine alignment. Gratitude becomes the atmosphere in which miracles take root, blessings become visible, and your spirit becomes steady in the midst of change. What makes gratitude so powerful is that it begins on the inside, but transforms everything around you. Your thoughts shift, your words soften, your attitude brightens, and your faith strengthens. Gratitude has the ability to interrupt patterns of negativity that try to steal your joy the moment you wake up. It refocuses your attention from what is missing to what is present, from what went wrong to what is still possible, and from what hurt you to what healed you. Many people underestimate how much spiritual warfare they win simply by refusing to let their heart grow cold or ungrateful. Gratitude keeps the door open for God to move, because it signals trust, surrender, and expectation. It tells heaven that you are ready to receive, and it tells darkness that you refuse to be discouraged. When you start your day with gratitude, you place your spirit under covering of peace that circumstances cannot easily disrupt. Challenges may still come, but they cannot shake you the same way, because your foundation is different. You are not standing in reaction mode. You are standing in recognition of God's presence. You are not beginning your morning by reliving yesterday's stress. You are beginning it by acknowledging today's blessings. Gratitude shifts the atmosphere of your mind, calming the noise that tries to overwhelm you before you even leave your home. It quiets the inner critic, dissolves anxiety, and makes room for clarity. This is why the enemy works so hard to distract you with frustration, comparison, or discouragement the moment your foot touches the floor, because he knows that a grateful heart is a spiritually empowered heart. Gratitude also transforms how you see yourself. When you look at your life through the lens of thankfulness, you begin to notice the strength you gained from past battles, the wisdom you received from difficult decisions, and the resilience you built through seasons that tried to break you. You no longer see yourself as someone barely surviving, but someone who has been carried, protected, and equipped. Gratitude reminds you that you are not walking alone. It reveals patterns of God's faithfulness that you may not have seen while you were in the struggle. Suddenly, what once felt like random events become clear signs of divine orchestration, and that revelation shifts your confidence. You become more sure of your purpose, more hopeful about your future, and more secure in your identity. There's also a spiritual authority that develops when gratitude is practiced consistently. It strengthens your prayer life because you are not only asking, you are acknowledging. You are not just seeking, you are recognizing. Gratitude opens the door for deeper intimacy with God because it brings your attention back to His goodness, His provision, and His unfailing love. When you pray with gratitude, your prayers carry more faith. When you worship with gratitude, your worship carries more depth. When you speak with gratitude, your words carry life. Gratitude amplifies the spiritual atmosphere around you so that your faith becomes active instead of passive. Even in difficult seasons, gratitude shifts the atmosphere by giving you divine perspective. It does not ignore the pain or pretend the problem isn't real, but it refuses to surrender to hopelessness. It allows you to say, this situation is heavy, but God is still with me. It helps you see the lesson while you are experiencing the hardship. It helps you identify the blessing hidden in the delay. Gratitude becomes a kind of spiritual backbone. It keeps you upright when life tries to bend you. And when others look at you and wonder how you remain calm, strong, or hopeful in circumstances that should have crushed your spirit, the answer is simple. Gratitude held your atmosphere together. Gratitude kept your spirit anchored. Gratitude kept your faith alive. Gratitude is also a seed that multiplies. When you express thankfulness for what you already have, you create space for more. You train your spirit to notice opportunities, open doors, and divine connections that you would normally overlook. Gratitude expands your awareness of what is possible. It lifts your expectations and aligns your vision with God's intentions for your life. As a result, you begin to attract experiences that match the atmosphere you carry. A grateful spirit draws favor because gratitude honors God in a way that invites increase. One of the most profound aspects of gratitude is that it changes the spiritual climate of any environment you step into. When you carry gratitude, you carry peace into chaotic spaces. You carry hope into discouraged rooms. You carry light into dark conversations. People feel differently around someone who carries gratitude because it shifts the emotional tone without a word being spoken. Gratitude becomes a quiet ministry that touches people simply through your presence, your attitude, your patience, and your warmth. You become a reflection of God's goodness in everyday interactions. Gratitude also strengthens relationships. It softens hearts, breaks down walls, and restores connections that may have been strained by stress, misunderstanding, or silence. When you are grateful, you become more attentive, more patient, and more compassionate. You begin to appreciate people instead of analyzing them, value them instead of criticizing them, and recognize their efforts instead of focusing on their flaws. Gratitude teaches you to celebrate the people God has placed in your life and to speak life into the relationships that matter. This creates harmony around you, and harmony itself becomes a spiritual atmosphere that invites God's presence. Finally, gratitude shapes your future by influencing the decisions you make today. A grateful heart is more resilient, more hopeful, and more open to growth. You take more chances because you trust that you are supported. You walk with greater confidence because you know you have overcome challenges before. You welcome new assignments, new opportunities, and new responsibilities because gratitude gives you the courage to believe that what is ahead is greater than what is behind. Gratitude lifts your spirit into alignment with promise, and that alignment is what shifts the atmosphere of your entire life. Recognizing each new day as a divine gift and opportunity begins with understanding that waking up is not a routine event. It is a sacred moment wrapped in purpose, intention, and unseen mercy. Each sunrise carries with it a quiet message from heaven, reminding you that your presence on this earth still matters, that your story is still unfolding, and that God has entrusted you with another page to write. Many people open their eyes without truly awakening their awareness of what that moment represents. But when you realize that every new day is a spiritual assignment and a fresh invitation to step into grace, your entire approach to life shifts. You stop taking time for granted. You stop moving through your morning on autopilot. You begin to see each breath as evidence of divine investment in your destiny. When you recognize a new day as a divine gift, you also recognize that God has gone before you to prepare things you cannot yet see. He has arranged conversations, opportunities, breakthroughs, and protections long before you stepped into the morning light. The simple act of being alive means heaven is not finished working on your behalf. It means there's still potential waiting to be unlocked, still blessings waiting to be revealed, still growth waiting to unfold. And when you start your day with that awareness, it becomes harder for negativity to take root. You realize you are stepping into something sacred, something intentionally crafted for you, something filled with possibility. The mindset of gratitude and expectation becomes your spiritual compass, guiding you into the purpose hidden within the hours ahead. Seeing each day as a gift also shifts how you handle challenges. Obstacles lose the power to intimidate you, because you understand they are part of the divine design for your strengthening. Instead of waking up with dread or anxiety, you wake up with spiritual posture, ready, willing, and aware that whatever the day holds, God equipped you with the grace to face it. You begin to perceive difficulties as opportunities for growth, moments where God reveals new dimensions of your resilience, your wisdom, and your faith. When you view the day as divinely orchestrated, you no longer feel abandoned in trials, you feel accompanied. You begin to sense God's presence in every detail, guiding your steps and illuminating your decisions. Recognizing each day as a divine opportunity means realizing that time itself is a blessing many never receive again. Every new morning is a reset button, a chance to realign, rebuild, and restart. It is a chance to forgive, to heal, to release, to hope again, to dream again, to step forward in ways you were too afraid to before. So much of spiritual stagnation happens because people underestimate the power of a single day, but one day can change everything. One decision can open a new chapter. One encounter can shift your direction. One act of faith can reposition your destiny. When you approach a new day with spiritual awareness, you stop waiting for life to change and start participating in the change God is orchestrating. This perspective also invites you into deeper appreciation for the small things, the quiet mornings, the gentle breezes, the conversations that uplift you, the strength in your body, the clarity in your mind, the protection you didn't notice, the provision that carried you, the peace that held you together. You begin to see that each day is stitched together with blessings both visible and hidden. And when you acknowledge them, your spiritual sensitivity sharpens. You begin to recognize God's fingerprints in places you previously overlooked. You feel His nearness in ordinary moments. You hear His whisper in the stillness. You feel His encouragement when you are weary. A new day becomes a canvas upon which God paints reminders of His love. Seeing the day as a divine opportunity also empowers your choices. You start moving with intentionality instead of passivity. You stop letting life happen to you and start shaping the day with purpose. You speak differently. You think differently. You choose differently. You evaluate how you use your energy, where you place your attention, and who you allow into your atmosphere. Every action becomes more meaningful because you know the day itself is meaningful. You no longer squander time on things that drain you. You invest in things that align with your calling, your values, and your spiritual growth. Recognizing each day as a divine gift opens your heart to transformation. It challenges you to grow into the person you were created to be. It urges you to release habits, fears, or mindsets that no longer serve your purpose. The new day becomes an opportunity to rise a little higher, love a little deeper, believe a little stronger, and walk a little closer with God. It becomes a place where you practice forgiveness, extend grace, pursue excellence, or confront the parts of yourself you have avoided. A new day offers space for repentance, reflection, realignment, and renewal. It grants you room to evolve. Embracing each day as a divine opportunity also intensifies your sense of calling. You begin to realize that your presence in this world is intentional, that the day would not have arrived for you unless there was something within it you were meant to touch, influence, accomplish, or learn. Your existence becomes connected to heaven's greater plan. You wake up with a sense of purpose that stretches beyond personal gain. You recognize that your words, your kindness, your service, your creativity, and your faith may be exactly what someone else needs. A new day becomes a stage for God to use you in ways you did not anticipate. This awareness also strengthens your ability to discern. When you treat the day as an opportunity, you naturally begin to ask, God, what is the assignment within these hours? This shifts your mind from wandering to listening, from worrying to trusting, from rushing to noticing. Discernment heightens because you understand the value of each moment. You become more sensitive to divine nudges, more aware of spiritual warnings, more obedient to inner promptings that guide your steps. This transforms your entire outlook because you begin to walk not just with faith, but with intention, attentiveness, and alignment. Recognizing each new day as a divine gift also brings healing. It reminds you that you are not stuck. You are not defined by yesterday. You are not imprisoned by your past. Each day arrives carrying mercy that refreshes your spirit. Even when life feels heavy or confusing, the fact that you received another sunrise means hope is still alive. A new day becomes a gentle reassurance from God that your story is still unfolding and that the chapter you are in is not the final one. You start to understand that every morning is a form of compassion and invitation to rise again, try again, and trust again. Understanding the day as a divine opportunity also lifts your emotional and spiritual resilience. You become less reactive to unexpected disruptions because you see the bigger picture. You learn to navigate challenges with grace instead of panic. You begin to interpret delays differently, setbacks differently, interruptions differently. You see them not as obstacles, but as redirections or lessons. Even the timing of the day becomes meaningful. You begin to trust the pace of God's process. Ultimately, recognizing each new day as a divine gift changes how you show up in the world. You carry a different energy. You walk with gratitude, with expectation, with peace, and with purpose. You become someone who honors the day, someone who listens for God in its quiet edges, someone who seeks meaning in every moment, someone who understands that the gift of today is one of the greatest expressions of divine love, grace, and intention. Aligning your heart with faith rather than fear begins with inner decision, a quiet but powerful shift in the way you choose to see yourself, your circumstances, and your future. Fear is loud, demanding, and immediate. It thrives on uncertainty, amplifies worst-case scenarios, and attempts to convince you that you are unprepared for what lies ahead. Faith, on the other hand, is steady and grounded. It whispers confidence into your spirit, reminding you that you are not navigating life alone and that every step you take is supported by divine guidance. The moment you choose faith, you shift the entire atmosphere of your heart. Your thoughts settle, your emotions stabilize, and your spirit becomes anchored in something greater than your current situation. Aligning your heart with faith is not about pretending challenges don't exist. It is about recognizing that they do and choosing to stand firm anyway. Fear narrows your vision until all you can see is the threat, but faith widens your perspective until you begin to notice possibilities hidden behind the problem. Fear magnifies what could go wrong. Faith highlights what God can make right. When you align your heart with faith, you learn to resist the instinct to panic and instead lean into the truth that every season has purpose, every delay carries meaning, and every obstacle contains an opportunity for growth. Faith gives you the strength to walk into uncertain situations with confidence rooted, not in your own ability, but in the assurance that divine wisdom is guiding your steps. This alignment with faith reshapes your inner dialogue. Your thoughts shift from I can to I can, from I'm alone to I am supported, from what if I fail, to what if this is the beginning of something new. Fear uses imagination against you, but faith uses imagination to inspire you. When your heart leans toward faith, you speak differently. Your words carry hope, encouragement, and expectation. You begin to declare what you believe instead of repeating what you fear. Words become tools that build your future rather than chains that hold you to your past. Choosing faith over fear also changes the pace of your life. Fear rushes you, pushes you, and pressures you to make decisions from a place of anxiety. Faith slows you down long enough to breathe, reflect, and discern. It teaches you to move with intention instead of reaction. It gives you the clarity to recognize when to pause and when to act, when to wait and when to step forward. Your timing becomes aligned with divine timing because your heart is no longer driven by panic, but guided by peace. Aligning your heart with faith means understanding that fear is not just an emotion. It is a spiritual distraction designed to pull you away from purpose. Fear keeps you small, keeps you silent, keeps you stuck. It convinces you to settle for less, hold back your gifts, and doubt the path set before you. Faith does the opposite. It awakens courage. It activates purpose. It nudges you into new territories, new opportunities, and new levels of spiritual maturity. Even when the path ahead is unclear, faith encourages you to take the step anyway, trusting that clarity will come as you move. When your heart is aligned with faith, you begin to interpret challenges differently. Instead of seeing them as signs that you should turn back, you see them as indicators that you are evolving. You realize that growth rarely happens in comfort, and progress often requires stretching. Faith teaches you to see difficulties as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. You begin to sense the presence of strength within you that fear tried to hide. You discover resilience you didn't know you had, wisdom born from experience, and endurance shaped by past victories. Faith also transforms your emotional landscape. Fear brings chaos, restlessness, and heaviness, but faith ushers in calmness, clarity, and balance. When your heart is anchored in faith, you stop living in mental overdrive. Your inner world becomes a place of stillness where peace can settle and divine insight can flow. Faith does not remove the storms around you, but it centers you so deeply that the storms lose the ability to shake you. You become grounded in the truth that no matter how strong the wind blows, you are rooted in something unmovable. Aligning your heart with faith brings you into deeper spiritual awareness. You begin to notice divine patterns, subtle guidance, and moments of protection that previously went unseen. You start to feel God's presence more clearly in the ordinary rhythms of your day. Faith heightens your spiritual perception, enabling you to sense when something is right or wrong, when a door is opening or closing, when your spirit is being nudged toward a new direction. This awareness strengthens your trust and brings comfort, especially in moments when life feels uncertain. Faith empowers you to dream again. Fear shrinks your imagination to the size of your comfort zone, but faith stretches it to the size of your calling. When your heart aligns with faith, you give yourself permission to hope for things that once felt impossible. You begin to envision a future that reflects God's promises rather than your past limitations. Faith inspires creativity, purpose, and vision. It revives dreams that were buried under disappointment and breathes new life into the desires of your heart. Aligning your heart with faith also strengthens your relationships. Fear makes you guarded, defensive, and suspicious. It convinces you to withdraw or expect the worst. Faith teaches you to love generously, forgive freely, and communicate with discernment. It helps you build connections rooted in trust rather than insecurity. It softens your heart where fear hardened it, and it opens you to give and receive love without expecting rejection at every turn. Relationships flourish when faith guides your heart because faith encourages patience, empathy, and understanding. Faith also redefines your identity. Fear tries to label you unworthy, incapable, inadequate. Faith reminds you of who you truly are, chosen, equipped, and created with intention. When your heart aligns with faith, you begin to see yourself the way God sees you. Your confidence becomes grounded not in external validation, but in inner conviction. You start to walk differently, speak differently, and carry yourself differently because your sense of worth is no longer fragile. It is rooted in truth. Aligning your heart with faith rather than fear teaches you to trust the unseen. It invites you to believe that even when you don't understand the why, there is purpose unfolding. Even when you can't see the path, the way is still being prepared. Even when the situation looks impossible, the power to change it still exists. Faith trains your heart to rest in divine possibility rather than earthly limitation. It helps you surrender control without surrendering hope. When your heart is aligned with faith, you begin to move through life with intentional courage. You take steps that once felt too risky. You embrace opportunities that once intimidated you. You speak boldly where you once stayed silent. You pursue what matters instead of settling for what is familiar. Fear may still knock, but it no longer decides the direction of your life. Faith becomes the guiding force, the steady compass that shapes your decisions and strengthens your spirit. Choosing faith over fear creates an inner atmosphere that welcomes divine intervention. Your heart becomes open, receptive, and aligned with the flow of grace. You begin to witness breakthroughs, blessings, and answered prayers more clearly because faith positions you to recognize them. Aligning your heart with faith expands your capacity to believe, to trust, to endure, and to rise. It becomes the spiritual foundation upon which courage is built and destiny unfolds. Acknowledging unseen blessings and God's continuous grace begins with opening your heart to the truth that not every miracle in your life is loud, visible, or easily recognized. Many of the greatest blessings you have ever received are the ones you never noticed because they happened in silence, behind the scenes, in the moments when you were unaware of the danger you were protected from, or the provision that was already set in motion for you. The unseen realm is active long before you take your first step each morning, and grace is working on your behalf in ways you may never fully understand. When you acknowledge these hidden blessings, your spirit becomes more sensitive to the quiet ways God shows His love, His protection, and His presence. You begin to live with a deeper sense of gratitude that does not depend on circumstances, but is rooted in awareness. Unseen blessings are often the ones that preserve you when life feels overwhelming. They show up in the form of strength you didn't know you had, peace that settles you in moments when you expected to fall apart, and wisdom that comes to you at the exact moment you need it. They show up in delays that frustrate you but ultimately save you from harm, in redirections that feel confusing but lead you to better paths, and in opportunities that appear just when you are ready, not a moment earlier, not a moment later. Many times, what you interpret as coincidence is actually divine intervention working quietly in the background. Acknowledging unseen blessings shifts your perspective from wondering whether God is working to recognizing that He has been working all along. God's continuous grace is woven into your daily life, even on days when everything feels chaotic. Grace carried you through seasons you thought would break you. Grace covered mistakes you made out of exhaustion, confusion, or fear. Grace reopened doors you closed out of frustration and shut doors that were never meant to hold your future. Even when you drifted, grace drew you back. Even when you doubted, grace sustained you. Even when you felt unworthy, grace reminded you that God's love does not move according to your perfection, but according to His character. Acknowledging this ongoing grace builds humility, gratitude, and confidence at the same time because it helps. You see that your life is not held together by your strength alone, but by divine favor that never runs out. Acknowledging unseen blessings also helps you appreciate the simplicity of life. You begin to notice the peace in your home, the moments of rest that refresh your soul, the breath in your lungs, the ability to move, think, speak, and function. You realize that even the stability you rely on, the roof over your head, the food you eat, the relationships that uplift you are all manifestations of grace. What many consider ordinary is actually extraordinary when viewed through spiritual awareness. The ability to wake up without fear, the opportunity to grow, the capacity to forgive, the chance to start over. These are blessings that cannot be bought or measured. When your eyes open to these truths, gratitude becomes a natural response. Unseen blessings also include the battles God fought for you while you were unaware. There were moments when harm was turned away from you, when negative intentions were dissolved before they reached you, when spiritual attacks were blocked, when situations that could have damaged your spirit were softened by God's mercy. There were nights when you slept peacefully, not because everything was perfect, but because God kept watch over you. There were decisions you made that could have gone terribly wrong if not for divine protection guiding the outcomes. Acknowledging these blessings deepens your trust because you recognize that you are covered even when you cannot feel it. Many blessings arrive disguised as challenges. A disappointment becomes a doorway to something greater. A closed opportunity becomes protection from what wasn't meant for you. A loss becomes the soil for a new beginning. When you acknowledge unseen blessings, you stop interpreting hardship as abandonment. You begin to understand that God's grace is often revealed more clearly in struggles than in success. You recognize that even in your hardest seasons, something was happening beneath the surface. Your character was strengthening, your faith was expanding, your resilience was being shaped. The blessing may have been hidden, but it was always present. Acknowledging unseen blessings also shifts your relationship with time. You begin to appreciate the timing of events, even when they don't unfold according to your expectations. You recognize that God's timing is not random. It is precise. There were things you prayed for that didn't arrive when you wanted them because grace was protecting you from premature blessings. There were opportunities that came later than you hoped because grace was preparing you to handle them with maturity and wisdom. When you see time through the lens of unseen blessings, you stop rushing. You stop comparing your journey to others. You embrace the pace God has set for your life because you trust that His timing is intentional and aligned with your purpose. God's continuous grace also appears in the relationships that shape your life. Some people were placed in your path to support you in moments of weakness. Some encouraged you, prayed for you, believed in you, or comforted you when you felt overwhelmed. Some taught you lessons you needed to learn. Some acted as temporary guides, others as lifelong companions. The presence of the right person at the right time is not accidental, it is a form of grace. Even the people who challenged you or caused you pain became part of your growth, pushing you toward healing, boundaries, and self-discovery. Acknowledging these interactions as unseen blessings softens your heart and expands your understanding of grace. Unseen blessings often show up in your own transformation. You are not who you used to be. You have outgrown habits, fears, attitudes, or mindsets that once limited you. You have healed from experiences that once defined you. You have survived seasons that could have broken you. You have developed strength you didn't know was possible. This growth did not come from your effort alone. It came from grace, guiding you, renewing you, and rebuilding you from the inside out. When you acknowledge this, you begin to honor your evolution as evidence of divine work within you. Seeing God's continuous grace also helps you navigate uncertainty with more peace. When you know that blessings exist even when you cannot see them, you stop living in fear of the unknown. You stop expecting the worst and start anticipating God's goodness. You understand that the same grace that carried you yesterday is already waiting for you tomorrow. This awareness gives you confidence in moments of transition, peace in moments of confusion, and courage in moments of decision. You trust that even when you cannot predict the outcome, grace is ahead of you, preparing the way. Acknowledging unseen blessings opens your heart to deeper worship. Your gratitude expands beyond what is visible and reaches into the unseen spaces where God has been actively involved in your life. You worship not only for what you understand, but for the mysteries of mercy you may never fully comprehend. Your praise becomes more sincere, more intimate, more reflective of your understanding. That grace surrounds you, continuously guiding, shielding, restoring, and uplifting you. This awareness also helps you live with greater joy. You stop waiting for big miracles to feel grateful. You find joy in the journey, in the growth, in the process, in the quiet ways God reveals himself each day. You become more present, more hopeful, and more connected to the spiritual reality that you are never without divine support. Joy flows naturally when your heart recognizes that even in moments of uncertainty, you are held by grace that never stops flowing. Acknowledging unseen blessings and God's continuous grace is an ongoing practice that transforms your entire outlook on life. It deepens your gratitude, strengthens your faith, and reminds you that every moment, seen or unseen, is shaped by divine love working faithfully on your behalf. And as we stand here, having reflected on gratitude, purpose, faith, and the unseen blessings that follow us each day, let this moment settle deeply into your spirit. You are not walking through life by accident. You are guided, covered, strengthened, and chosen for such a time as this. The breath in your body is proof that God is not finished writing your story. So step into this new day with boldness. Step forward with a heart awakened to grace. Walk with gratitude as your foundation, faith as your compass, and divine purpose as your direction. Let every thought, every decision, and every step reflect the truth that you are supported by heaven itself. Lift your head, open your heart, embrace the blessings that surround you, both seen and unseen, and move into the future God has prepared with confidence, expectation, and unwavering belief that the best is not behind you, but ahead of you. Let this be the moment your spirit rises, your vision clears, and your faith becomes unshakable. Let this be the moment you say yes, not to fear, not to doubt, but to purpose, destiny, and the fullness of God's glory working in your life.